This is Derrick Broze. This is Derrick Broze of the Conscious Resistance. I'm here in Standing Rock.
That man is wanted in 5 different countries: Chile, Argentina, Brazil.
We've been fighting a long time. We've all lost so very much. So many loved ones gone.
Don't you fucking tease that horse!
You are not alone. There are pockets of resistance all around the planet. We are at the brink. Above all, stay alive. You have no idea how important you are. Are you listening to this? You are the resistance.
Hey everyone, this is Derrick Broze with the Conscious Resistance Network. This is episode 146 of the Conscious Resistance Live. I've been doing this show for over a decade now. Thanks to everybody who's tuned in. Please let me know if you can hear me coming through, okay? I've taken a couple of weeks off and now I'm back getting settled into the new studio and been writing articles weekly for The Last American Vagabond, as I always do, as well as working on my research for the final 2 episodes of the Pyramid of Power documentary series. Hopefully you guys are familiar with it by now. This is a 17-part documentary series that I've been working on since 2021, and we have released the first 15 episodes at thepyramidofpower.net. And we're working on the final 2 right now. Tonight, we'll be looking a little bit into some of my research into that topic as we near the end of that series to answer the question, who or what is at the top of the Pyramid of Power? And we'll talk about that more specifically tonight with a little bit of a focus on the Jesuits. And yeah, so lots coming up. I'm also going to cover a couple of articles that I've been working on related to, as the title indicates, fluoride, and then unchecked surveillance by the Department of Homeland Security in the United States, and really just the overall continuing, ongoing, indefinite conversation about surveillance in the United States and surveillance around the world, more broadly speaking, and how it just continues to march forward. That there seems to be no end to news every week, month, year about the increase of surveillance, the violations of privacy. And, you know, I've had this conversation with different friends and, in different fields of research, asking whether or not privacy is even a thing. I mean, whether privacy even matters to some people. And I've heard people make arguments that there's a generational gap that say, you know, I'm 40 years old now. I just turned 40. So let's say maybe people my age and a little bit younger might still care about privacy, but you go maybe into people born in the, post 9/11, let's say, their awareness or understanding of a level of privacy, is nowhere near anybody who remembers life before that. I mean, I was only 17 when 9/11 happened, but I do remember life before that. And obviously surveillance existed before 9/11, but the point is it increased in such a massive way, and the public learned more about it. But let's say, for example, somebody was born in 2005, and they're 8 years old as the Snowden leaks, among other leaks, make mainstream news, that they wouldn't even probably be aware of it at 8 years old. But let's say now they're born in 2005, they're going on 20 years old now, 19 going on 20. And they have grown up in a world where privacy is essentially not something that they maybe even consider, because it doesn't exist to a large degree, or at least there's the appearance that it doesn't exist. But I also believe that privacy is a right that you have. It's like a muscle. You have to flex it. You have to use it. This is why, despite the craziness, like we covered in the last episode a couple of weeks ago about the surveillance state in terms of the National Reconnaissance Office partnering with Elon Musk and Starlink, SpaceX with Starlink and the Starshield military satellite program, or the spyware companies that are preparing for Donald Trump's next presidency, or the stuff we're going to talk about tonight. There are a lot of different ways that people are trying to get into your business. And so some people sort of just give it up and don't even bother. Others, like myself, try to focus on what we can do. And like I said, take that muscle of privacy, that right, and flex it when you can. And so, okay, it might take a little bit of effort, it might take some learning, whatever, just using new tools, things like that. But I'm going to make the effort because I want to keep whatever level of privacy I can. That's sort of the school of thought that I come from. Not that I'm, believing that any of the efforts we make can't potentially be cracked by the government or even private actors, or if it can't be cracked now, it can't be cracked, it won't be cracked in the future. But as I said, it's important to practice, put your principles into practice, not just have them theoretically, hypothetically, philosophically, but actually practice them. And so that means trying to, reduce your interaction with different surveillance systems. But what happens when some of these surveillance systems are way above and beyond our control? Like, for example, the claims of them putting all these satellites in the air for Starlink, but also for the Starshield program, helping the U.S. government build one of the world's largest spy satellite networks in the world, $1.8 billion classified contract between Elon Musk's SpaceX and the National Reconnaissance Office, right? Like, how do we stop that? I don't know. I don't know. And as we're going to talk about tonight, there's more than 20 different forms of surveillance that the U.S. government is currently using against the American people without a warrant at the moment. And that is pretty crazy. It's nothing brand new, but we're going to get into that and ask the question, how do we protect ourselves against that? Because I am a big advocate for being proactive and taking what I call the exit and build strategy. Exiting from slavery systems. So I don't use a cell phone. I don't use a smartphone. My partner Miriam does, though, and she uses the above phone. It's a de-Googled, privacy-based phone with privacy browser and privacy maps and tools and open source, et cetera. So we try to make the effort because I think it's important. But there are some things that are just simply beyond our control, and our personal behaviors and actions, like not using Google, won't make a damn of a difference, unfortunately. Now, before we get further into tonight's show, I want to remind you guys, my website is theconsciousresistance.com, theconsciousresistance.com. I've been running this website for over a decade now. I launched it in 2012, 2013 as a place for my investigative journalism where I could do real hard-hitting investigative journalism, talk about individual liberty and voluntarism, but also explore ideas like spirituality, explore claims of UFOs or of psychedelics and anarchy and all kinds of things that I'm interested in. So you'll find a lot of different content at theconsciousresistance.com. I encourage you guys to check this website out. I'm always saddened when I'm on social media and somebody asks me where to find some of my work. I'll make a post or something about a latest video I did, an article, and somebody will say, "Oh, where do I find that?" And the answer is pretty much always going to be theconsciousresistance.com. It makes me feel like maybe I'm not doing a good enough job of actually telling people where my website is, but I've got more than 10 years worth of content here. You can, for those who are watching on the screen, you can go here and look at our investigations, documentaries, my books, learn more about agorism, the exit and build strategy that backs my work. You can look at my presentations I've given over the last 11 years, all solutions focused. And then the rest of my work is broken down by topic, category. So depending on what you're interested in terms of my journalism, you can find something there. And there's going to be more categories we're going to be adding in the coming days because we've got stuff on here that I haven't added, like Syria, so many other things that we need to get added to this grid here. But the point is, there's a lot of stuff here. So if you're ever just looking for new, interesting content from a conscious-minded, spiritually minded, hard-hitting, no bullshit investigative journalism perspective, my work and the work of my other collaborators are at theconsciousresistance.com. So yeah, let's go ahead. Like I said, we're going to talk about my article here that just came out a couple of days ago on The Last American Vagabond. Federal government watchdog warns the Department of Homeland Security is surveying Americans without a warrant using more than 20 technologies. Federal watchdog has released a report detailing how federal law enforcement agencies are using more than 20 types of surveillance technology without a warrant and with very limited privacy protection. So we're going to talk about that story in just a moment. But first, I want to show you guys a clip. This is from the 1970s. Just going back to the surveillance conversation back then. And I want you to hear this clip. It's only a couple minutes long. And it's from Frank Church, from the church hearings, the Church Commission. They revealed all about all kinds of stuff, CIA surveillance and MK Ultra and heart attack guns. So much things came out of it. But in this clip, he's particularly talking about surveillance. So this is Frank Church, Senator Frank Church in like 1976, I think. Check out this clip and kind of put this into perspective of what we're about to talk about, what's going on in 2024. But look at how bad things already were in the 70s.
Well, Senator, let me follow up by asking, do you think that the CIA and military intelligence agencies and the FBI have used the emergency provisions, both in law and by emergency agency, the Federal Preparedness Agency it's called now, to have contingency plans which threaten the liberty of American citizens?
Mr. Rowan, in due course, the committee will pass judgment on those questions. I'm not going to pre-guess the committee or prematurely attempt to pass judgment on this program. But let me tell you this. In the need to develop a capacity to know what potential enemies are doing. The United States government has perfected a technological capability that enables us to monitor the messages that go through the air. These messages are between ships at sea, they could be between units, military units in the field. We have a very extensive capability of intercepting messages wherever they may be in the airwaves. Now that is necessary and important to the United States as we look abroad at enemies or potential enemies. We must know. At the same time, that capability at any time could be turned around on the American people. And no American would have any privacy left. Such is the capability to monitor everything. Telephone conversations, telegrams, it doesn't matter. There would be no place to hide. If this government ever became a tyranny, if a dictator ever took charge in this country, the technological capacity that the intelligence community has given the government could enable it to impose total tyranny. And there would be no way to fight back, because the most careful effort to combine together in resistance to the government, no matter how privately it was done, is within the reach of the government to know. Such is the capability of this technology. Now, why is this investigation important? I'll tell you why. Because I don't want to see this country ever go across the bridge. I know the capacity that is there to make tyranny total in America. And we must see to it that this agency and all agencies that possess this technology operate within the law and under proper supervision so that we never cross over that abyss. That's the abyss from which there is no return.
The abyss from which there is no return. Wow, and that was 1975. That was Frank Church. If you look up the Church hearings, the Church Commission. So 50 years ago, as of a few months from now, pretty crazy. And he's describing different types of surveillance that are nowhere near what I'm about to describe. But already back there, 50 years ago, he was warning that the government intelligence agencies had access to technology and tools that could monitor the American public at a level that, as he said, could go to a total tyranny. And that is, a bridge that if we cross, there would be no going back from. Now, before we get further into the story, I'll just share a little bit more of my thoughts on surveillance. Like I said, I don't think the average person is fully even aware or maybe even cares, but definitely not aware of the level of surveillance that we're facing from spyware created by private companies that contract with military and government agencies to get your data and spy on your phones, from police having access to all kinds of tools that I'm about to share about, to the satellites that I described a couple of weeks ago, and to obviously being able to wire access phone lines and smartphones and all these kinds of things. Like it is an absolute reality check that we need to be able to contend with. And I am coming from a libertarian anarchist perspective, not the kind of person that wants government involved in our lives and doesn't usually call for, let's ban the technology and try to fix the things through government. I don't think that's the answer. And at the same time, I do believe, as I said a couple of weeks ago, when it comes to spyware and perhaps AI and facial recognition, as I argue or talk about in my book, How to Opt Out of the Technocratic State, which everybody can download for free at theconsciousresistance.com/how-to. And I do think that there is a danger that we are going into uncharted territory with AI. I don't want to just add to the chorus of people like AI is going to take over the world. It's all bad. No, there's some really cool, good, interesting uses of artificial intelligence and large language models. But I do think there is a danger posed by that. And the same thing with facial recognition. I wrote about this in the book originally in 2019, published in 2020, that there's been a lot of people warning about the push towards facial recognition and the danger it poses, because when you combine, many people are aware of the concerns around digital IDs and digital money, central bank digital currencies, trackable, traceable money, right? You understand those concerns, but those things don't really function on their own individually. it would not to create the complete control grid you want, right? So like you have a digital ID or a digital wallet. Well, that can store the state's digital currency, the Fed coin or CBDC or stable coin, whatever, right? But it also has your identifying features, or they just scan you with facial recognition cameras everywhere. But that's the beginning of a more networked control grid. That's just the beginning of it, right? So digital ID, digital currency, that stuff doesn't fully work without facial recognition cameras being placed everywhere. And then, of course, all of that, the knowing everywhere you go, studying your behavior, studying your habits, your online traffic, et cetera, and the digital currency aspect ties into a social credit score, because then they can use this sort of interconnected system to lock you out, to pressure you into doing whatever behavior they want, whether that's get the vaccine or, stop posting conspiracies on the internet, or you'll lose your job, or your score will go down, you'll lose your next promotion, things like that. So this is really just another piece of an all-encompassing system that people need. This is what I call the technocratic state. And so I've been warning about this for years. This next article, though, is going to go into 20 technologies that are now being described as, these are not brand new technologies. So this is something we've known about, but these are technologies that the US government, specifically the Government Accountability Office, the GAO, who you may or may not have heard of, but it's a government agency it's supposed to be independent, nonpartisan government agency. It's been around for, I think, 60, 70 years, maybe longer than that. But they're within the legislative branch, and they're supposed to audit, evaluate, and investigate different services for the US Congress, but they're supposed to be completely independent, nonpartisan, and they kind of exist in their own little, bubble and do reports like this. Well, this new report, as I mentioned a couple of moments ago, said that there are more than 20 technologies that the Department of Homeland Security law enforcement agencies are using. So for those who don't really understand the US government, obviously the bunch of different bureaucracies and branches, you got the Department of Homeland Security, and underneath that, you got ICE, Immigration Customs Enforcement, you got Border Patrol, which is Customs and Border Patrol, and then you also have the Secret Service. You got a bunch of different agencies. They focused on those three, though, the Secret Service, the Border Patrol, and ICE, for this report. And they said just among those three agencies, they have more than 20 types of detection, observation, and monitoring technologies such as drones, facial recognition, and automatic license plate readers. Each of these technologies are currently operating without the need for a warrant approved by a judge. And so the GAO put out this report with 5 specific recommendations. They do try to say, hey, if we want to fix these things, the way they sort of promote it or discuss it is like, these are just gaps. It's not like it's a conspiracy. These are just gaps. The government's so bureaucratic that we're not properly checking to see if these tools are, not biased, because if you've understood or you followed things like facial recognition and AI, these things can be biased in different ways, whether that's against women or biased to like people of color. What I mean by that is like when they're scanning faces, sometimes it might have false identifications depending on the person's skin color. Things like that can affect. These aren't perfect technologies, right? So the GAO does make some recommendations to fill those gaps and say that there needs to be, more accountability, essentially, is what it comes down to. Now, whether or not that's going to mean anything in the long term, I'm doubtful. But the types of technologies that they discuss, there's a few of them you can see on screen here. But the different 20 technologies that they've found that are being contracted with the 3 agencies: facial recognition, fixed and mobile automatic license plate readers, audio recording devices and light poles and other infrastructure, concealed and visible body cameras, cell site simulators, also known as stingrays, drones, radio frequency collection, surveillance towers, and traffic cameras. And that also includes like the shot spotter, where basically it's an audio recording devices that they put on light poles that are supposed to help bring down gun violence, but they can also be used to track. And so in addition to that, the GAO noted that they have these 20 different technologies, but that these agencies also use a, quote, variety of analytic software systems, some of which, of course, are using AI to enhance their surveillance capabilities in public places. These systems have multiple uses, including anomaly detection, facial recognition, object recognition, and object tracking. And the GAO report does make a mention, it does acknowledge that using these technologies without warrants can, quote, raise civil rights, civil liberties, and privacy concerns. And it also says that, quote, DHS officials stated that facial recognition is not used to scan members of the general public. They claim so far. That's what they're claiming right now. That's like the official stance of the Department of Homeland Security. We're not just scanning everybody's faces, willy-nilly doing whatever we want. That's what they claim. I have trouble believing that once this technology is out there that it's not being applied. But currently, there are not a massive facial recognition federal program. There is a FBI facial recognition database that they've collected over the years. There's also private companies like Clearview AI, which has one of the world's largest facial recognition and biometric databases. They call this, by the way, your face print, like your thumbprint. They call the face that we've been giving up through selfies for years. They call that the face print. So there's currently not just a mass program of that, but some of the cases when they will use facial recognition, of course, is when they claim it's in the pursuit of some investigation or national security, stuff like that. Now we have to decide how much we want to trust these agencies when they claim that they're going to use it within their own rules and, you know, just trust them. And I don't know, maybe I'm just paranoid or I just have trouble trust issues or something, but it's hard for me just to imagine these people are just out there looking out for us, and that when nobody's looking and we have no way to really hold them accountable, that somehow they're not just going to use this technology to its fullest capacity because they know they're not going to get caught. I mean, maybe that's pessimistic or cynical, but nevertheless, the report continues. It says, quote, "We and others have reported that the introduction of AI can enhance the capabilities of technology, but it can also increase the risk of bias. For example, a 2024 National Academies report found that while progress has been made in the accuracy of facial recognition algorithms, they still perform less well for groups with certain characteristics, including those associated with race, ethnicity, or gender." And so there's the bias risks I mentioned earlier, but also the report says that these technologies pose a danger of deterring constitutionally protected behavior by Americans. And they acknowledge that according to a report from the International Association of Chiefs of Police, they say that, quote, "the enhanced collection and compilation of automatic license plate reader data, that it was increasing the risk that, quote, individuals will become more cautious in their exercise of their protected rights because they consider themselves under constant surveillance." And the authors of the GAO report also note that civil liberties advocates have long noted that using facial recognition at protests and other events can cause some people to stop participating in these events. So even if you're not doing anything wrong and they're just like, hey, you're out in public, we're going to use facial recognition, some people will be deterred by that already. And I encourage you, my friends, not to be deterred. We need to stand up in the face of this. I mean, just to personalize that a little bit, I always opt out of the facial recognition check-in, which has started to expand, not just in the United States, but in Mexico, internationally, pretty much. A lot of places, international travel are now starting to try to require it. You have the option to opt out. Even when I went to Bath, UK a couple months ago for the People's Reset out there, you guys might remember I told the story that I was detained with my family for 5 hours at the airport because we chose to opt out of the facial recognition. There's a lot of people who don't even know you can do that. There's like the little tablets that are in front of you, and they've already trained so many people that whenever, because of COVID, when you walk up, you just step in front of the tablet and boom, it takes your face print and then you can walk through. But you can say, "Excuse me, I'd just like a normal check-in with my passport, please." And you don't even really have to give an answer, but nevertheless, this guy harassed us for 5 hours. So you can opt out of that. But also for those who are American, you might know what I'm talking about here. If you travel internationally, when you come back into the US, you got to go through customs, and it's like this big giant room. Usually, obviously it depends on the airport, but it's like this big room. People are coming from international. They have Americans go here. They have people from other countries go at the other spot. And when you come back into that line, you'll usually come up and talk to a DHS agent, a Border Patrol agent. He or she's sitting at a desk, and they have these little like goggle looking things, like a little camera. And in our experience, we walk up, hello, give them our passport, and they'll say, "Look at the camera." And it looks like little goggles. And then people just do it. And I'll admit, I've been doing it for years. But I recently realized that that's optional too. And so now when I come back and I go through that thing and I stand to the side of it. That's the other thing, is make sure you're not even walking up to that thing where you're in its range, because they are snapping photos. And the big concern here is not just that the US government's going to use it, but who is the company that they're contracting with? What's the app that they're using to collect the photos? Where's that information going to get stored? How's that going to be used against you now or in the future, right? So I now opt out of those things, in addition to opting out of the body scanners and stuff like that as well. But we have to be willing to stand up to these things and push back against them. And as it gets more widespread, and there are businesses like Amazon and others that are testing out these humanless shops and stores that you can come into, and it's just going to scan your face, or if you have a little chip in your hand, scan your hand, and you walk in, you grab whatever you want, and you walk out. And it's because it's already scanned your face and connected that to your bank account, your digital wallet, whatever else, and automatically deducted the money. Oh, it's so convenient, so fast. I don't have to talk to a dirty human. But all of those things are going to normalize this technocratic state. So we have to push back publicly. We need to push back loudly. I'm not saying create a scene or be a fool of yourself, but definitely let's not be the kind of people like this report was describing, which is a reality that some people, I've had this happen for years. I mean, I can speak from direct experience. When I found out I was under surveillance by the Houston Police Department back in 2012, my activism started in Houston in 2010. And after a couple of years, we were just kicking butt. We were making the news. We were getting, coverage and protesting. It was a lot of energy back then, 2010, 11, 12. And I learned later by some leaked information from two different sources within the Houston Police Department that myself and the Houston Freethinkers, the activist group I started, that we were under surveillance. I was even sent pictures of a classroom training session with a picture of myself and a friend and the name the Houston Freethinkers, with cops in the room being taught about us. And that was the beginning of my awareness of how surveillance, how real it can be. I'm like, we haven't even done anything yet. We're building, community gardens. We're raising money for benefit shows. We're protesting every now and then, passing out flyers and DVDs. But nevertheless, we were under surveillance. And even with that, some people said, Derrick, I'm not sure I'm going to come to events anymore because, I got this situation I'm dealing with or whatever. I don't want to have any issues. It's a real thing. It can happen. So even if you are not the person you're like, I'm nobody cares about what I'm doing, what I'm up to, we still have to flex those muscles, those privacy muscles, as often as we can. Opt out when you can against facial recognition. Say no to just handing over your data, your face print, just because it's a brand new app that you want to play, some video game or something, because that's the way that they're going to normalize this technocratic state that I've been warning about for years. They're going to normalize it through entertainment. They're going to normalize it through convenience, like I was just saying with the stores where you don't have to talk to a human, you can just pop in and out. They're going to normalize it in a number of different ways, and we have to keep pushing back against it. We have to find ways to opt out. That is what my work focuses on. Again, if you're interested in solutions and you don't want to just watch the world get more and more surveyed as weeks and months and years go by, but you actually want to try to protect and preserve your liberty, your privacy for yourself, your family, and for the coming generations, then I encourage you to check out my book, How to Opt Out of the Technocratic State. You can find it again for free. Download free audiobook at theconsciousresistance.com/how-to, theconsciousresistance.com/how-to. There's also a Spanish version, a German version, and a French version as well. And as I said, there is an audiobook. So we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. Thank you guys for listening to The Conscious Resistance Live. My name is Derrick Broze. Stay tuned.
Are you using your phone, or is it using you? Rise above mass surveillance and discover a phone that protects your privacy and communications.
Above Phone does everything your old phone does, without tracking you, while giving you complete control over your phone and apps. We are better than big tech. It works with any cell service. No forced logins, no advertising or tracking. Download apps privately. Control your phone and its apps with secure hardware. Introducing Above Suite. Protects your internet traffic. Private email on any device. Video call with friends privately. Encrypted chat, calls, and internet phone. Protect your searches and get results. Don't worry if you're new. Every phone includes a free 45-minute live call. You also get free email and chat support, free guides and video courses. We can take back our technology. We're here to help with tools and education. You have the power.
Rise above with Above Phone.
AbovePhone.com
All right. Sorry about that. Internet cut out. Check out abovephone.com. That is one of my partners for our show here. And obviously, as I'll be talking about privacy, preserving your phone, protecting yourself on your phone is one of the ways to do that. You can go to theconsciousresistance.com and you'll see an ad on there. And if you click through that, if you decide to purchase a phone, and I think they got a bunch of deals going on for the Christmas season and New Year's, that supports my work as well. By the way, you guys may have noticed my internet just cut out for a moment there, or I disappeared. So, when I'm doing this live, weird shit like that happens, but I always edit this up whenever we're done. And I post the most edited, no drops or anything like that on theconsciousresistance.com. And I load the audio to Spotify. So everything that everybody hears through the audio version or on my website directly or on Odyssey is always going to be the most up-to-date version. But if you watch it on YouTube or elsewhere, you get all the fuck ups and screw ups. So I guess enjoy it if you like. But all right, let's go ahead and continue. We're going to go to my next article. We just talked about surveillance. We're going to talk a little bit about fluoride, which is another issue that if you've been following my work, you know that this is something I've been reporting on for years. Again, since the beginning of my activism, this was an issue that I personally cared about deeply. Water fluoridation, the dangers posed to health, forced medication, the environmental concerns. I mean, so many different aspects of this. And it went from being something that I went to city council as an activist, which I actually still have done this year, to being the only journalist going to San Francisco back in February of this year to report on the federal fluoride lawsuit between the Fluoride Action Network and the United States EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency. I interviewed the leading scientists and leading experts in that lawsuit, including Dr. Bruce Lanphier, Dr. Philippe Grandjean, and Dr. Howard Hu, as well as Michael Connett, the lead attorney in the lawsuit. I've read all of the different studies that have come out in the last 4 to 7 years, if not longer than that. I mean, I've been reporting on fluoride for over a decade. I've followed the saga of the National Toxicology Program report, which if you know my work here, then, I don't even need to say anymore. But if you don't, then go to theconsciousresistance.com, check out our water fluoridation tab, and dive deep into the history of this government report, which was suppressed for almost 7 years. And for sure, for a couple of years directly from being released, even though the scientists said that they were ready for it to come out because they could conclude with moderate confidence that fluoride is associated with lower IQ in children. So I say all that to say that I've been following this stuff for quite a while now, and it's been great to see the movement against water fluoridation gaining some ground, going from being just another conspiracy that people dismiss and reference movies like Dr. Strangelove, which propagandize people to think that only crazy people question fluoride, to something that is being discussed in the mainstream. Now, it's unfortunate in my view that this growth of the fluoride movement has started to become associated with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Donald Trump because of the, what they call the Maha movement. Not to say that any discussion around fluoride isn't a good thing. I do think it is a good thing, but I have seen how the association of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Donald Trump, like let's say you're somebody who doesn't like those people for whatever reasons, right or wrong reasons, but you do care about the fluoride issue, you might actually see this as a detriment to the movement because now you're going to say, oh man, we were winning the lawsuit. We had the federal court, the judge did rule as well as the NTP report that fluoride is associated with lower IQ in children. We had these huge victories, and now Trump and he's a polarizing guy, so people are going to love him or hate him. His association with this issue makes it harder for us. That's what I've seen amongst some people in the movement against water fluoridation. Even talk of sort of division within certain groups that are kind of suffering the consequences of the issue growing very quickly, which is a positive thing, but also being associated now through this Maha with Trump and RFK for better or worse. And I would say potentially for worse, because the movement was already winning through the lawsuit, through the hard work of the people at Fluoride Action Network, not to mention countless individuals like myself, journalists and activists and just advocates on the ground going out there and fighting and raising awareness over decades and decades. That it's a huge victory. So nevertheless, though, fluoride is out there. It's in the news. And this new article that I'm reading from, this is my article from last week at the Last American Vagabond. It's titled, "With Fluoride Back in the News, Americans Are Once Again Being Told to Trust the Silence." So trust the science, excuse me. So part of this article, I started looking at how the discussion around fluoride ever since, as I said, RFK and Trump have been talking about it. RFK tweeted 3 days before the election, so back in early November, that on Trump's first day in office, he was going to advise all U.S. water systems to remove fluoride from the public water. And he said fluoride is an industrial waste associated with arthritis, bone fractures, bone cancer, et cetera, which is all true. And then from there, there's fact checks and official statements coming out, just making sure to reassure the public that, it's still the CDC's water still considers water fluoridation to be one of the top 10 public health achievements. Don't worry, everything's okay. And then once Trump actually nominated RFK, then people got even more crazy. I mean, you can find all kinds of articles, including the New York Times, having to write about this, including the Houston Chronicle, where I'm originally from, having to address fluoride for the first time. And that's pretty crazy because, I mean, even just a month ago, before the election in October, almost 2 months ago now, I was in Houston going to city council specifically to talk about fluoride. If you guys follow my channel, you probably saw those videos where I went there and I was talking about the NTP study. I was talking about the lawsuit, talking about all the facts I'm sharing here, and I got nobody to pay attention. Well, hopefully they might be more willing to listen, or like I said, maybe they're going to be like, oh, he's one of those Trump people. He's one of those RFK people. I'm not going to listen to him now. Doesn't make it right, but right or wrong, people will make their assumptions now that these people are kind of becoming the face of it in the mainstream. But again, like I said, there's been a lot of people like activists like Justin Harvey, we're going to talk about in just a moment, who've been really kicking ass for years and fighting this. So I go through showing how the New York Times is trying to reassure their audience and make it seem like, fluoride is safe. They're saying overall water fluoridation has benefits and it's safe. It's safe at the levels we use in the United States. And then we also had Scientific American. And then I have a whole section of this article where I talk about what the corporate media gets wrong, and including where they try to poo-poo and downplay whenever Robert F. Kennedy or any of us say that it's industrial waste. Well, I show the exact company, or at least one of them, Mosaic Co., based in Tampa, Florida, which is where the fluoridation chemical they use, hydrofluorosilicic acid, which is a byproduct of Mosaic Co.'s phosphate mining. They're the largest U.S. producer of potash and phosphate fertilizers, and that's a chemical waste. It's a byproduct of industrial. It's an industrial waste byproduct of this mining here, and it's added to municipal water supplies. So I would consider that to be industrial waste. I go through other areas just showing how the media, as you can expect, is falsely reporting and leaving out important facts, which would give people a more full understanding and of this fluoride situation, because it is a complex topic. Yes, you can just say, yeah, fluoride's bad, end of story. That will convince some people, sure. But if you're trying to talk to somebody who feels that they're educated and they understand science and this and that, that's not going to do. You're going to need to do your homework. And so that is the kind of information that I try to provide in this article here, to give you the fuel and the resources to go then talk to people in your family and friends and your network and say, hey, look, this is a real topic. I know the mainstream media is telling you that it's garbage and okay, yeah, fluoride's bad, but only at really high levels. It's totally fine at the levels we have. But hey, check out what these scientists actually said. Check out what these studies found here. The data's there. You just got to take it and use it, my friends. And that's why I make the effort to write. So I encourage you to read and share these articles. Now, one positive thing is that whether it's related to the NTP report, to the lawsuits ruling, or to RFK's nomination and his statements, a bunch of different places are definitely starting to reject fluoride. We've got Davis County, Utah, Abilene, Texas, Yorktown and Somers, New York, Clearfield, Pennsylvania, Union County, North Carolina. They've been fighting since, before these rulings for years, but now there's been recent developments. So it's just picking up. And then just a couple of weeks back, November 22nd, we had Florida Surgeon General Joseph Ladapo announcing that he was advising all communities in the state to end the practice of adding fluoride to the water due to the, quote, neuropsychiatric risks. And he cited the NTP report and the federal court ruling specifically. And so he gave this press conference. The video is there in the article. You can check it out. And he said, quote, those are clearly the most sensitive. He talks about the studies on pregnant women and children. He says, those are clearly the most sensitive and vulnerable populations for fluoridation in terms of these adverse neuropsychiatric effects. So he makes that statement. And then all of a sudden, Florida just starts going crazy with places getting rid of fluoride. There's Brooksville, more recently Collier County, Naples, Stewart, and Winter Haven. Other counties that are cities that I think are supposed to very soon: Bartow, Tallahassee, Tavares. I think Tavares actually just recently did vote to do it. And Justin Harvey of We Are Change Orlando is a good friend of mine. And I've interviewed him on this channel, known him for years, just a great activist, boots on the ground, raising awareness about the dangers of the shots, about 5G, the spraying, NASA. He's into flat earth and some other things where he might disagree, but he's very passionate about everything he agrees in, or that he believes in. And he's, just an amazing activist. I'd work with him any day on any issue that he believes in, other than probably flat earth. But Justin's a great guy, and he went to city council. He's been all over the news. He's been doing the real work. And in fact, in this article, if you come check it out, he did give me a direct quote. We've got an audio quote as well as a written quote from him. And he said, quote, "At this point, to me, the writing is on the wall. I've always been an optimistic advocate, but this really shows me that we've sort of won the fluoride fight and we're just watching it play out." But he also said that people shouldn't just sit around and wait for Trump or Kennedy to save the day. He said, quote, "I think we as local communities should still work as hard as possible and fast as possible to get it out of our local communities. Use the court case, use the Florida Surgeon General as momentum to show people, hey, these conspiracy theorists may have been onto something here. This does lower IQ." So that's my whole point. There's been so much data out there. Thankfully, people like Justin are getting out there and visiting their city council, visiting their commissioner's court or what have you. I encourage you guys to do the same. Whatever you've got in your community, go out there and find out who are the so-called authorities that are fluoridating the water in your area and bring this information to them. Bring this information to them, show them that you've got this data. By now, they've probably heard about it in the media, and it's probably just things like RFK Jr.'s crazy. Don't listen to anybody who, talks about fluoride. You can't trust him. Again, there's an unfortunate guilt by association that some people will use. And if they don't like RFK, if they don't like Trump, they might just be dismissive. But nevertheless, the science, the data is on our side. So use these sorts of stories and information to get the information out there to the public when you can. And and again, kudos to Justin with We Are Change Orlando. He's out there just kicking butt. You can find We Are Change Orlando. He's on Instagram, he's on Twitter, and he's on Telegram. If you want to check out We Are Change Orlando, Justin Harvey. This article, T-Lab, is called "With Fluoride Back in the News, Americans Are Once Again Being Told to Trust the Science." I don't know why I keep saying silence, but I guess because they're silent about the truth. That makes sense, huh? All right, so this last topic we're going to focus on for the rest of the show is the other topic in my title here, which is about the Jesuits. And I see there's some comments, people interested in this topic. What you see here behind me, my friends, there's 4 shelves and some books on top, and there's a bunch of books in boxes over there, and there's a bunch of books on the way to me right now. This is my library that I've been collecting over the years. It's nowhere near as impressive as I hope it to be someday, but I do have a lot of cool books that I've been collecting over the years, particularly older books about so-called conspiracies, not because just because something's old is necessarily true. We don't want to fall into this appeal to history, or an appeal to antiquity that like, okay, because something is old, it must be true. No, there can be old books that are cool, but they could be just as false as anything said today. So I think that's a trap some people might fall into occasionally. But I do like to study old books where people were warning about the influence of Zionists or the Jesuits or the Freemasons. And these go back to the 1700s, some cases even earlier. So a good amount of my books here range from things on 9/11, COVID, secret societies, and then, the more classic older books. Today, I am going to pull a couple off my shelf, but what we're going to go through now for the next little bit here is I want to share some of the latest research I've been doing for the Pyramid of Power documentary series. If you guys haven't seen the Pyramid of Power yet, I encourage you to visit thepyramidofpower.net. The goal with this series was to release 4 episodes at, reasonably within a time frame as a so-called season. So we're in season 4. We're waiting for chapter 16, the final main episode of those seasons, to come out in January. And then after that, the final penultimate episode, number 17, the top of the pyramid, will be answering that question. But you can go back and see the 15 episodes that we've released since 2021, like I said, broken up in seasons of episode 1 through 4, 5 through 8, and so on. And the idea is that each of these episodes starts out like, and the first cornerstone is education and corporate media, pretty basic topics, but doing a deep dive into the facts around it. I don't get into hyperbole. I don't get into speculation. Every episode of this series, you can find my transcript with all the links and all the resources and my references. And I think that's important. So as you go through the episodes, each episode is going to take you through my original research as well as references to previous books and documentaries, which I think tell the story. And also every episode is going to end with recommended reading and watching and some suggested solutions. This was my goal, was to try to make something that could be bingeable. So if somebody tunes in and they listen to it, the audio is good, the research is good, the visuals are appealing, interesting, there's nice music soundtrack, and it pulls you in and you're like, oh my God, that's crazy. Let me watch the next one. Hopefully I've succeeded. I've got some really great reviews over the years. People have told me they've used it for homeschooling, that they've played it in different kinds of situations, that they got friends and family to listen who normally wouldn't listen to so-called conspiracy videos. And maybe that's because I don't see it as a conspiracy series. I see it as a true crime series. Like I said, focused on the factual information that I can prove. Now, as we get to the final episode of Who's at the Top, I will have to get a little bit speculative because I don't think anybody truly knows. And so there's some level of speculation once we get above a certain certain hierarchy on the pyramid, so to speak. But I am going to be drawing my own conclusions. The next episode that's coming out in January is called Religion and Secret Societies. And it is going to be, of course, my perspective on religion, but also looking at historically how religion has been used to manipulate and divide people and as a justification for war and for violence and many other things like that. And how I believe organized religions, institutionalized religions are actually taking people away from their connection to the divinity and to the direct source. Whatever God you believe, whether you praise Jesus Christ or something else, that you have a direct connection to that relationship, and that you don't need a priest or a pastor or a church or even a book to define that for you. And so we're going to get into that. We're also going to talk about how a lot of people who claim to be certain religious traditions actually are practicing members of different secret societies. And then in the final episode, like I said, we're going to answer the question of who's at the top of the pyramid. So what I want to share with you guys today is I'm going to give you a real preview of the background of what I'm working on. This is going to be, you'll see a little bit of my, my crypt pad, my document framing my script, because I'm going to be working on it very soon. And then we're going to go through about a dozen different links referencing some pieces of the puzzle. I'm not going to tell you everything that I'm going to be covering in this last one, but just throw out a few different references. And I know that I have an amazingly well-researched audience out there across all the different platforms that are just, you guys are constantly giving me tips and things and new rabbit holes to go down to. I don't necessarily follow you on all the different things, don't always agree with everything, but I do get a lot of great tips and I'm very grateful for that. So I will be making a lot of different references. I'll be showing you guys a couple of books, and I look forward to the comments. So let me go ahead and let's go ahead and share this. This is, as I said, my crypt pad, my document for chapter 17 of the Pyramid of Power. And let me zoom that in a little bit so you guys can see it. And I did this before when I was making my documentary for the Finders, namely because I was advised by friends that, hey, if you're going to be researching some pretty dangerous topics that people might want to keep secret, maybe you should make your research public in case something happens. So it was a good way to just share my background research in the build up to the documentary, but also make sure that my information was public. And not that I have this concern for this one, but nevertheless, here we are. So who's at the top of the pyramid? We're going to, some of the pieces of the puzzle that I've already covered at this point, as in the final episode, or in the public government level. You've got big education, you've got the intelligence community at the corporate level, you've got corporate media, big wireless, the nonprofit industrial complex, the foundations, the prison industrial complex, the food complex, institutions that overlap with government and corporate. You've got big tech, the banking cartel, the oligarchy, the pedo class, and then entertainment. Of course, you've got Hollywood and the intelligence connections there. This interlocks in different ways to create what I call the technocratic state, the people who are being guided by technocracy, as we cover in chapter 13. And then one of the tools we covered in chapter 14 was that they use, 15 was false flags. And then spiritual manipulation, like I said, that's going to be religion and secret societies for chapter 16. And so the first beginning of chapter 17 is going to be like a summary of everything that we've touched on, just real brief, like I just did, but a little more in depth. And then we'll start to say, okay, well, who's at the top of the pyramid? And there's the obvious sort of front groups, the World Economic Forum, the United Nations, the Club of Rome. I say front groups because I don't think those are the top of the pyramid by any means, but they are public-facing groups that promote the agendas, and those agendas filter their way down all the way to the local level. We'll give a brief history of that, and then I'll define, what I call the predator class at the top. I also want to explore this idea of synarchy. I had synarchy somewhere else here too, though. Yeah, I'll save that for just a moment. Predator class at the top. And then we'll get into this term, the deep state. And I have an interview. If you guys don't know who actually popularized the term deep state in the English language, it's this guy, Peter Dale Scott. Now, Peter Dale Scott is an older gentleman. He's got to be in his 90s by now. And I definitely don't think he's as sharp in his analysis on world events as he used to be. Frankly, I don't think he was very correct on COVID, but this guy understands deep politics, and it's him that popularized the English term deep state after it was like a Turkish term originally. And so he's researched 9/11 and so many other topics. I interviewed him a couple years ago. It's going to be featured. He's been featured in a couple episodes, but he's going to be in this last one describing his belief of what does the deep state actually mean, right? And then we're going to have an interview with Patrick Wood, some of which I've already clipped. And basically the goal is to just ask all these people who's at the top of the pyramid. And I've done this. So, Peter Dale Scott's going to say it's the deep state. Okay, so what is the deep state? Let's look at that idea. Patrick Wood says it's the Trilateral Commission and the group and the technocratic state, the technocracy behind it. Okay, well, let's look at what that's about, right? And then there's this term, the synarchy, which has been described in some ways as a technocratic elite with secret societies playing a role. So just for those who have no idea, never heard of this, I do encourage you to look into it. There's a whole deep history that is pretty interesting. It's a whole other rabbit hole. Synarchism, synarchy, it's not like anarchy. It's this meaning of like kind of technocratic rule by elites. And, there's supposed to be secret societies that are kind of guiding things. It's just another way of control. And it really comes from the writings of Alexandre Saint-Yves, who you may have heard he's connected to. I've talked about the book about Agartha, the Hollow Earth, before. He wrote that book, and that goes into some other claims that there's like a secret elite inside the Hollow Earth. Yeah, I've been knee deep in some of this research. But he talks about synarchy. In one of his books, he said that this was an ideal form of government, a reaction to anarchist ideologies. And so there is some belief that this term actually is maybe one of the terms that the so-called hidden elite, the shadow government of the deep state, has referred to themselves as. And it's, as it says here, the word synarchy is used especially among French and Spanish speakers to describe a shadow government or a deep state, a form of government where political power effectively rests with a secret elite. And there's like a whole history of this going back to Vichy, France. Encourage you to check that out. I'm sure some of you are familiar with that. Then, of course, we'll get into the Bilderberg Group. And I'm going to be interviewing Daniel Echelin, who is one of the most well-known researchers, long-term researchers of the Bilderberg Group. He wrote like the big book about the Bilderberg Group. And we're going to look into the history of it, like Joseph Redinger, Boy Capel, Arthur Edward Capel. There's these different characters. And, when people ask who really created the Bilderberg Group, and we know Henry Kissinger was deeply involved in that as well. Like I said, there's Joseph Redinger. I've actually found a biography on him recently. This is one of the Bilderberg meeting websites where they admit that it was his idea to kind of create what we now call the Bilderberg Group, along with Prince Bernhard and others. And he's got an interesting history. So we'll be talking about the history of the Bilderberg Group, interviewing Daniel Echelin about that. We'll get into the Committee of the 300, which is an idea that was promoted by many people know about it from John Coleman. But there's also a German politician, Walter Rathenau, in 1909, wrote about this as well. This idea that there was 300 men, leaders in business, who were the rulers of everything. And, that's where this idea of the Committee of 300 comes from. We're going to talk about Zionists, of course, the influence of Zionism on our world around us. I'm having an interview with Adam Green that's going to be really great on that. We're going to talk again about the creation of the State of Israel by the Rothschilds. And as you guys know, there's this unquestionable, pledge allegiance to, do not speak ill of Israel that is just pervading most major nations. And then we'll talk about the Judeo-Christian religion, how that ties in. And then, of course, we'll talk about the Freemasons. The Freemasons' involvement in the American Revolution, the French Revolution, the Russian Revolution, the Spanish. I've got a list here of presidents who've been Freemasons, UK prime ministers, Mexican presidents, various monarchs from around the world, the kings and queens who were Masons and involved in related so-called secret societies. I've got some history here about George Washington, warning about the infiltration of secret societies and associations. September 19th, 1796, Washington says, "Beware of the little local republics springing up around the country. And my view from the nature of the thing, they are sources of mischief. The great rule of conduct for us in regard to foreign nations is in cultivating peace and friendship. There is, however, another rule of conduct which, being a derivative of the former, deserves particular attention. It consists in the restriction of foreign intrusions and influences. The great and chief aim of this policy ought to be, as is the right of every nation, to preserve its independence, its liberties, and its honor, to maintain and strengthen the ties which bind this nation to its neighbors." So he's going on warning about the influence of the Freemasons. There's also a book about this, 1798, Letters to Washington, where he was warned about it. I have the book right here. It's called Proofs of a Conspiracy. Here, I'll show you guys on screen. I tweeted about this. I actually did a report about this maybe a couple months or over the summer, July, talking about this book from John Robison, 1797. You can find it online, if you want to download it or whatever, look for it around. I'll just show you guys. This is my copy of it. Proofs of a Conspiracy. This is what I'm talking about, like going back and finding the old material, right? I don't want to just listen to somebody on YouTube or somewhere else say the Masons are behind it, they did everything, or it's the Jews, or it's the Jesuits. I want to be able to go find the original source material and dig deep into these older books. Again, just because it's old doesn't mean it's necessarily true, but it is interesting because I don't remember ever being taught this in history, that there were people warning from the beginning of the United States about the influence of Freemasons and other secret societies trying to come from France and elsewhere, who'd been influenced by the Illuminati, secret society that was being banned and run out of places to try to infiltrate the United States. Now, that's just one theory. Like I said, I don't think that's not my conclusion of the pyramid of power, but we're just talking about a range of theories that people have that I think, they're interesting, they're relevant. And this is just one of them. So like I said, Washington, he spoke about it. He was warned about it from this Scottish priest, I believe he was, John Robison, in the book, Proofs of a Conspiracy. We also got Alexander Horn. He's this other guy here that I've been checking out. He wrote about France's activities in undermining the so-called Holy Roman Empire. And it's his work that actually kind of formed the basis for John Robison's work in Proofs of a Conspiracy. So again, I try to find, okay, John Robison has these claims. He's got this in a book. Okay, being old doesn't necessarily mean true. What's his sources? What's his information? Okay, he got this from Alexander Horn. Let me learn more about him. Let me dive deeper into his history, right? Then there's another book that's by Horn called Memoirs Illustrating the History of Jacobinism. And this is a book not by Alexander Horn, but by Abbé Augustin Barrel, a French Jesuit priest who wrote this in 1797, around the same time as Proofs of a Conspiracy. It was translated to English in 1799. He claims that the French Revolution was the result of a deliberate conspiracy or plot to overthrow the crown, and it was initiated by a coalition of different people, including the Order of the Illuminati and the Freemasons. So we're going to dive deep into this. This is an account from 300 years ago, 250, 200 something years ago, 230 years ago. And I think it's worth considering at least and looking into these claims, because these are the pieces of history that get wiped and taken away from us if we don't dive deep into them. And then I also am going to have a whole section about, I didn't know this recently until I started diving into it, but did you know that there was a coup against the Hawaiian kingdom that of course involved the United States and other nations, but it was actually initiated by Freemasons? Like the whole thing, this whole coup against the kingdom, I can't remember what they called it at this point, but I have all the links there ready to go whenever I get to writing this. More than half the people involved in the coup against the Hawaiian kingdom to make it a Hawaiian state of the United States and, continue the colonization experiment was done by Freemasons as well. So then we've also got people warning about the Jesuits, of course. And I found this book, Jacobo Leon, The Jesuit Conspiracy, The Secret Plan of the Order, right here, which I have it downloaded already. This is it on Amazon. I try not to order anything off Amazon. I always go elsewhere, but just so you guys can see it. This is a book again. This claims that this guy who is a Jesuit priest, that he accidentally overheard a secret meeting among prominent members of the Jesuit order in Italy. And he subsequently left the Jesuits because he was like, holy crap, these guys are up to something different than I thought. And he basically became jaded with their practices, and he wrote this book. And what year was it again? Where'd we go? Does it say 1848? So there is a replication of the book published before 1848. So in the early 1800s, maybe late 1700s, sort of around the same time, you got people saying it's the Masons, other people saying like, no, I overheard the plan and it's a Jesuit plan. So we're going to look in that. Then also 1835, around the same time, Samuel B. Morse, who most people probably know because of Morse code, he actually wrote the book Foreign Conspiracy Against the Liberties of the United States, which also accused the Jesuits of being Austrian agents sent to destabilize American democracy. I ordered this book recently. It should be here any day now. I'm waiting patiently. The full title, I love this. These old books, they always just go like all in on their titles. So here's the full title of the book: Foreign Conspiracy Against the Liberties of the United States, How the Jesuits Used the Vatican, Foreign Monarchies, the St. Leopold Foundation, and Subservient Catholic Mobs to Secretly Infiltrate and Control America. Now that's a title. So that's by Samuel Morse, the inventor of Morse code. Again, he obviously believed that there was a Jesuit conspiracy going on. I have the writings of this guy, Avro Manhattan. I don't know if that's a real name, but I've only been able to find this person. Not a lot of information about them, but they had some books specifically about the Jesuit influence and their claims. Now, I'm not saying I've verified this yet, but I'm just putting it out there. This guy wrote a lot of books, and he believed that it was all the Jesuits behind everything. So some of his books, the Vatican, Moscow, Washington Alliance, the Vatican Billions, this one, Vietnam, Why Did We Go? You notice there's a cross in the middle. It has something to do with him believing there was a Jesuit Catholic Church influence. He's written plenty of books. This book was published in 1984 already, so this is older stuff. But Avro Manhattan, another one of the researchers who claims a lot of different world events were being orchestrated by the Jesuits. There's also this book, Who Are the Jesuits and What is Their Role in World History by Caleb Kimball. I don't even remember when this book was published. I can't recall where I found it. I've been doing so much research, but there's an ebook version of this. I'm trying to find it in print. Like I said, I haven't verified the claims within it, so forgive me if it's total crap, but I'm just diving deep looking for older stuff to find the original source material. And then some of you who've gone down this rabbit hole, you've probably heard about Charles Chiniquy, who was a Canadian activist and former Catholic priest who left the Catholic Church and basically started kind of becoming a whistleblower in a way. There's this whole story, which I'm trying to verify for the Pyramid of Power because I see it repeated a lot and I don't know if it's actually true. But there's this story. We know that Abraham Lincoln was a lawyer, and allegedly at some point him and Chiniquy crossed paths, and Abraham Lincoln represented him at a case. And then through that, he was able to inform Lincoln about the Catholic Church, the Jesuit influence. There's also some quotes that have circulated. Again, I don't personally vouch for them. I'm going to do my best to fact check them when we publish this final episode. That claim that Abraham Lincoln directly spoke against the Jesuit influence and warned and said that the Civil War, there's some theories that the Civil War was like a response by the Vatican, because the Vatican was like the only state in the world that recognized the Confederacy and perhaps wanted them to win. There's just a lot of different things. Like I said, I'm diving into that. I don't think it's all necessarily true. There's a lot of things that you'll notice get repeated often without people verifying and fact checking, unfortunately, but I'm going to be diving super deep and trying to verify what we can. So then we also got their oaths, Engineer Corps of Hell. This is another one that I wrote about. Where is this one? It's on the shelf somewhere. Let's see. I can't find it right now, but we'll just read the title because the title is another really epic one. I need to find that book now that I'm thinking about it. Okay, here it is right here. The Engineer Corps of Hell, or Rome's Sappers and Miners. Here it is, Engineer Corps of Hell. get out of the light a little bit. This one was published in 1883, and the full title, The Engineer Corps of Hell, Catholic Church, Pope, Syllabus Errorum, or Rome's Sappers and Miners, containing the tactics of the militia of the Pope, of the secret manual of the Jesuits, and other matter intensely interesting, especially to the Freemasons and lovers of civil and religious liberty. So what you'll notice, as I have maybe, is that these groups, like there's people who claim it's the Jesuits, there's the people who claim it's the Freemasons, but I've also gone deeper into and found that there is some overlap between the Jesuits and Masons. People claiming, no, the Jesuits influenced the Mason lodges and vice versa. We're going to get into that whole thing. Jesuits being expelled from Masonry at some point in the past. So again, I don't know, other people maybe feel more confident, but I don't think any of us can for certain say who's at the top of that. Now, I do have people like Adam Green who's going to say, hey, all of this argument about Jesuits and Masons, it overlooks that the idea that in his view, it's the Judeo-Christian, folks behind it. Then we're also going to look at claims from people like Daniel Eshtelin and others about the Venetian black nobility, which maybe some of you heard about. And that's really all I'll say for now. We'll dive deeper into what is the Illuminati, of course, and different people's writings on that. We're going to talk about claims that it's Satanists at the top of the pyramid, and we'll hear from Mark Passio. We'll talk about dark occult secret societies, Satanists, Luciferians. Adam Green will have a counter argument. We're going to hear from David Icke about what he says this otherworldly, interdimensional, saying that what we face is beyond human understanding. Then people like Richard Grove and others who say there's actually no capstone at all. And then we're going to talk about the power of authority. We're going to end with secret societies, intelligence agencies, and the interconnected relationship. And then I'll suggest some solutions. So that, my friends, you're the first people to get a preview of the final episode of the Pyramid of Power. That's all I'm going to share now. I think I kind of feel naked now. I feel like I showed too much. But that is some of what I'm working on. And of course, in the conclusion, I will draw my own conclusions. I'm going to present all these different researchers who have their perspectives. We're going to look at the claims for what they say and verify what we can and say, hey, this is sort of not so strong. And then I will make my final conclusions. And I'm really, really excited to be finishing this series because this has been a labor of love, but it's also a project that I know I'm going to promote for the rest of my life because I've been so grateful to work with 3 different amazing editors who make my work shine. I do all the research. I write the scripts. I record the audio narration. And I do some directing as far as guidance, but the editors, they just take it and run with it and make it amazing. And that makes it visually appealing for you guys to watch and to listen to. So I started doing the Pyramid of Power originally as a speech in 2018 when I was traveling the United States. And it was a 2-hour presentation trying to tell all this information. And I realized over time, maybe this is better as a documentary. So by 2021, we finally got the project off the ground. We did some crowdfunding. That's the other thing. The entire thing has been crowdfunded. We've raised about $25,000, $30,000. All of it has gone to paying my editors. I haven't been paid a dime yet, unfortunately, but we have plans for the future. And so that's why I say it's a labor of love. We've been working on it for years, and now we've got 2 episodes left. The 16th one is in production right now, Religion and Secret Societies. I'll be writing the 17th one in the coming months, and we're going to release that by March 2025. And then when that's completed, my goal is to do DVDs for those who still want and buy physical media, as well as USB drives. And then I am going to turn the scripts that I have put out into a sort of book version. So we'll have a companion book version if you want to actually have a physical copy of all the information that's presented in every single chapter. And I will be selling that, for the rest of my life. And if I had to give someone one thing and say, here, watch this DVD or take this USB drive and start your journey, it would be the Pyramid of Power. This is the sort of documentary that I always wanted to see as a so-called conspiracy theorist, somebody who asks questions, but also does have my head on straight and can think logically and rationally and doesn't just believe every single random conspiracy that comes along. That's who I made this documentary for. So I made it. It's a gift to you guys as a tool to try to wake up your friends and family. Go to thepyramidofpower.net and you can watch every single episode for free, guys. Like, this is why I made this. So I can try to condense all my research and all these different books and make it in a palatable form and then give you all the references you want so you can go deeper if you want. But if you don't, you can take the research for what it is and share it. And as I said earlier, I've had people tell me that they've homeschooled people with it, their kids with it. Somebody told me one time that they're like a substitute teacher. And they were, usually when you're in high school or school, when a substitute teacher comes along, you're not doing any work. It's just like, okay, you're watching a movie today or you're just reading or something. It's usually chill, right? So they put on one of the episodes of the Pyramid of Power for their students to watch, which I thought was super, super cool. So yeah, that's been cool. And just to hear from different people who said, like I said, we're homeschooling, we're showing to friends or family, or I've had people tell me my friends won't watch other documentaries because they're too long. They're too, they got like the doom porn, scary music, end of the world, kind of Alex Jones style. That's not what we go for. Again, fact-based, logical, rational, true crime, not conspiracy, fantasy, etc. So one more time, the website is thepyramidofpower.net. If you want to get caught up on that, and stay tuned for the 16th episode coming up and just next month, just in a couple of weeks here in January. And yeah, I think that's where we're going to leave it for tonight, guys. I do have one more thing. Usually, this part of the show here, what's Derrick reading? Well, actually, I am reading something else besides all the history I just shared with you. I will be talking more about this in the coming days, but a brand new book just came out over on agoristnexus.com. This is for my anarchist, agorist, libertarian, solutionary, parallel network friends. It's a biography of Samuel Edward Konkin III, who's the founder of Agorism, who's been a big inspiration on my work and what I call exit and build. I was actually working on a biography about him, and this one is it's not so much a biography, I guess you could say. It's in some way it's a story of his life, but it's also her Wendy McElroy, who's been a long-term libertarian anarchist here in the United States, who knew Samuel Konkin really well during his activist days and student days. This is her kind of writing her perspective and her memories of him, as well as discussing and debating his ideas and his influence. And it's really interesting. So if you're a nerd for this sort of stuff like me, and you want to know more about the history of Samuel Konkin, the guy who inspired me and my agorist work and my anarchist work and what I call exit and build and opt out, etc., you can go find this at agoristnexus.com. That's AGORISTNEXUS, agoristnexus.com. Go look under their bookstore and you'll find this. I bought a copy yesterday. It's on the way. I'm reading the PDF right now. And yeah, for nerds like me, it's cool stuff. If you want to check that out, go ahead and do so. Last thing I'll mention, guys, is if you want to invest in my work, I know Christmas is just a couple of days away and money's tight for everybody. After Christmas, as you approach the new year, if you've got a little bit of extra cash in your pockets from the holidays and you want to support investigative journalism like myself, I highly encourage you and invite you and humbly invite you to sign up for monthly support on my Buy Me a Coffee or Substack. You can also send cash or equipment or love mail or hate mail to my PO box. And of course, my crypto wallets. This is all at theconsciousresistance.com/invest. If you really want to invest in my message of empowerment and hard-hitting investigative journalism to make sure I can continue to do this, because 90% of the work I do is not paid, and that's fine. I make the choice to be here and to do this because I believe in it. But with your support, I could do even more. Right now, you may or may not know, the only work I am paid for is my articles for The Last American Vagabond. I do have a salary there, thanks to Ryan Christian of The Last American Vagabond and everybody who supports over there, because that allows me to do my work. But the documentaries, the interviews, the books, things, a lot of the things I do, the activism, do not pay the bills. So if you want to support me, $5 a month or anything like that, theconsciousresistance.com/invest. And I hope you guys enjoy your Christmas. I'll be back next Monday before the new year. So we'll talk about all the big stories of 2024 and what I think is coming next. And yeah, tonight our song going out is going to be another clip from me. My alter ego 33, my music that I perform, conscious hip hop. This next song is called Rising, as we always end with a conscious music video. And if you got ideas for conscious artists you want me to highlight, email me at derrick@theconsciousresistance.com. Let's get the music out there, the artists, the creators out there. I hope you guys will join me in 5 weeks in Morelia, Mexico as well for the People's Reset, thepeoplesreset.org. 35 solution-focused speakers, 5 days, talks, networking, community, workshops, family activities, music, cacao ceremonies, beautiful Mexico in the winter. Check it out at thepeoplesreset.org, guys. We got a New Year's Eve sale starting next week. So that's where we'll leave it. Until next time, my friends, enjoy this song. Soak up the message. It's about claiming your power, finding your power after maybe not having it for so long. And until next time, remember, you are powerful, you are beautiful, and you are free. Peace, my friends.
But let's keep this all rolling here. What do you have for the next track today?
So the last one I played and this next one are off of my first full debut album called Transmutation, which people can find at 33ishere.com. This song is kind of the next in that story that I was just telling. So, you're stuck in the place where you don't know when to change. This is like the moment when you finally claim your power. This song's called Rising. Yeah, if you're listening at home, this one's meant to get you on your feet a little bit. So if you're driving around, listening to this in your car or at home, come move with me. Check 1, 2, 33.
I'm never gonna stop, man, I'ma keep rising. I'm too strong to kill, yo, I'ma keep fighting. I live every day like it's gonna be my last. And I keep on rising cause I'm better than my past. I'm never gonna stop, man, I'ma keep rising. I'm too strong to kill, yo, I'ma keep fighting. I live every day like it's gonna be my last. And I keep on rising cause I'm better than my past. I'm better than my past and I'm never going back. Back to the place where it all went black. I lost myself for a minute, now I see the truth in me, and it's hard to believe. It felt like time was just slipping away, like I'm stuck in a loop, same every day. There's better days ahead, I can feel it in my bones. I need to find a way out and stop selling stones. Someone told me that we choose the life we live. Our souls knew the path before we're even kids. I wonder why my soul took the hard road. Of all the paths to choose, I chose the unknown, but I wouldn't take it back, man, I'm never going back. I'm loving my life, no secrets to unwrap. I broke free of my scars and prison bars. I say it again, man, I'm aiming for the stars. I'm never gonna stop, man, I'ma keep rising. I'm too strong to kill, yo, I'ma keep fighting. I live every day like it's gonna be my last. And I keep on rising cause I'm better than my past. I'm never gonna stop, man, I'ma keep rising. I'm too strong to kill, yo, I'ma keep fighting. I live every day like it's gonna be my last. And I keep on rising cause I'm better than my past. What's left to do when you can manifest anything? There's nothing I can't overcome, it's my dream. I found my power deep in my own struggles. Was hiding from myself, living a double life, got no time for death. I stared her down, ate the pill, slit the wrist, even tried to drown. There's nothing you can say to hold me back. Say it now, 33 is here, I'm on the attack. I ain't no great white, but I'm out for blood. The sense in the air, the criminals up to no good. I'm coming for the ones who think they own the people. They work to mold the minds, tending to their sheeple. But we're the realization of the creator's vision. It's time for us to change the world, let it begin. This is our time to create with our hearts. We're designing the world of the future, and I'm doing my part. I'm never gonna stop, man, I'ma keep rising. I'm too strong to kill, yo, I'ma keep fighting. I live every day like it's gonna be my last. And I keep on rising cause I'm better than my past. I'm never gonna stop, man, I'ma keep rising. I'm too strong to kill, yo, I'ma keep fighting. I live every day like it's gonna be my last. And I keep on rising cause I'm better than my past. Cause I'm better than my past. And I'm never going back. 33.
Yeah.
You catching what I'm sending out?
Yes, I am picking up what you're dropping.
Since 2012, the Conscious Resistance Network has been an independent media organization focused on empowering individuals through education, philosophy, health, and community organizing. We work to create a world where corporate and state power do not rule over the lives of free human beings. Our motto is leading by example and helping others in their pursuit of freedom. Visit theconsciousresistance.com to find our articles, documentaries, interviews, podcasts, books, and more. Remember, you are powerful, you are beautiful, and you are free.